Hello and welcome back for the 28th episode of the Sheepdog Brotherhood. I have with me, as always, Brett Atterbury.
Hey,
and
Doug.
Me, I'm Doug. We talk about stuff. And we're about to jump into a very interesting conversation today. And I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for joining me again, Brett. How you doing?
I'm good, Doug. It's been an exciting, amazing week for me. So I'm on cloud nine.
Why is that, Brett? Why are you on cloud nine?
Did I set that up well?
Yeah.
That was kind of like begging you, Doug, please ask me why I'm doing so well. Doug, last Sunday, I got engaged. Yes. To some, I know you're going to drop a joke here. Some lucky woman gets to marry this.
All that. All that.
All this and everything that comes along with it. Lord
Now,
have mercy.
Was it through correspondence? Have you guys actually met? Has she met you?
Is there anything wrong with doing it through correspondence? It is the internet world these days. I'm a little bit old school. I believe in the getting together face to face and actually looking someone in the eye. I know for some of the younger generation that's listening to this, they're like, "What for?" But anyway, so yeah,
Congratulations, brother. Very happy
Thank you
for
so
you.
much. Thank you so much. Met her last June, and just a wonderful lady, and just so looking forward to this
Starting your life.
new life together. So it's going to be pretty cool. Thank you.
Wonderful. So just for those who are keeping track at home, I'll have you know that Brett chose getting engaged over recording the podcast. So, just so you know out there where you stand in Brett's hierarchy of importance, it's behind her. So
Have you ever heard the phrase "love them both," Doug? I do. Love both my fiance and all the Sheepdog brothers. It's just that from time to time, you have to prioritize the most important thing, which is, as it says in the Bible very clearly, Doug, your wife is number one. Would you like me to read a Bible passage to emphasize the point?
Oh, sure. Actually, I'd prefer to hear it from rote memorization.
Yeah, I'm a Catholic. I don't do that. I need my notes, dude. I got the wrong one pulled up. So anyway, it's something like this. Love your wives as Christ loved his church. Now, not my wife yet, but fiance is pretty darn close. So, here we are, what we believe, this great St. John Paul II quote, God has assigned as a duty to every man the dignity of every woman. And even in the courtship phase of this, I've been thinking about that and practicing it. Now, to be fair, you would have to have my fiance here to actually confirm. Otherwise, I may just be making this up. But maybe someday we'll have her on, Doug, as we had your lovely wife, Nicole, on a while back. And she can either confirm or deny that I've actually lived that in our relationship. If she denies it, we'll cut that part out. We'll edit it.
Easy editing. We can solve that.
Or we'll use AI to change her words to while her mouth is moving. It'll look like some Bruce Lee kung fu thing. Yes, he's great. He's the most amazing human being I've ever met. Oh, thank you, honey.
Oh, that's so kind of you to say that. All right, so let's jump into this. Do you want to present the topic?
You start, and then I'll run with it a bit.
So, in the news this week, we have heard lots and lots from the pro-abortion advocates about how pro-life laws. I'm sorry, pro-choice advocates. Let me start over. We've heard a lot this week from pro-abortion advocates stating how pro-life legislation is killing women, right? Nothing to say of the babies that pro-abortion is killing, but they're speaking about the lives of the mothers. And they're pointing specifically about legislation such as here in the great state of Texas, where abortion is, not allowed with the exception of certain situations. They're saying that, because of that, women are dying. And then they cite these certain instances. And I think the most recent case that's been in the news this week was in Georgia, where a mother of twins chose to have an abortion. If I understand all the specifics of the case or the situation, she was late for her, I'll call it, she was on her way to have an abortion, a typical, dismembering abortion, and was late, missed her appointment. Because of that, they offered her a chemical abortion. She took the pills. The pills did what they do, which is, end the life of the babies, the twins in this case. And in the process of that, the body did not completely, I don't know if this is the right, the best word to use, but expel all of, all of the remains of the dead twins. And because of that, the woman went into sepsis, goes to the hospital. The healthcare providers did not maybe perhaps recognize the gravity of the situation. Went into septic shock. She ended up dying. Now, the media establishment and the left are pointing to pro-life laws and saying that is what killed this woman, when in fact the reality is what killed this woman was mifepristone, the chemical abortion drug. Not only did it end the lives of both of her twins, but because of known complications arising from the use of this drug, the woman also lost her life. And, this country is we are morally bankrupt. I don't know what else to. It just gets me so angry. We do a thing, and then we point to something else and say, "Well, that was the reason for why this horrible tragedy occurred." It had nothing to do with this woman's choice. It had nothing to do with the FDA approving a drug that we know to be, very laden with complications and risks. But hey, I want to kill my babies, so let's take this drug. And consequences be damned. Of course, nothing should ever bad happen if I make a choice to do something that I want to do. Let's just blame this other thing. I feel like I'm not making a coherent thought, but I'm just so irritated and angry.
Well, understandably, it's very odd, though, here in our political season, getting to the high point of it. It just brings home, whether it's this issue or any other issue, it's like everything is on the table to completely lie about, to demonize your political opponents. And it's kind of incredible that in this particular case that's being made, it's like, wait a second, everything that led to this unfortunate young woman's demise came from the abortion industrial complex. The ability for her to access drugs, actually getting the drugs by her choice, by the way. And then once things started not going as she thought they would, and she was obviously sick, going to the hospital and being taken care of by people who, if she told them what happened, who knew what had happened, and then didn't take the correct action. Like every person, every organization involved in this unfortunate tragedy was part of the abortion industrial complex. And so why on earth does that now become the fault of the other side for that having happened? It's really odd. It's like man, take anything that happens and spin it up into something to use against the other side. And how many people, especially, are incredibly gullible. I used to think they were gullible media. Now I know they're not gullible. They're in on the game. Who just take that and run with it. And these people have to be intelligent enough to know we are completely lying through our teeth right now just to help our preferred political candidate. And they do it with straight faces and seriousness. And you just think in terms of a person's character, to know that you're just lying through your teeth just to help out a side to help them win as best you can. I just can't imagine doing that. It's like, put all your morals and ethics and character, leave those outside at the door, and come in here and just participate in the propaganda of your preferred team. Man,
and it's not even just,
thank you for me.
But it's not even just about, your political opponent or, doing it to prop up your preferred candidate. It's also done to keep those advertising dollars rolling and to keep that funding coming in, whether it's to a political campaign, whether it's, the pharmaceutical industry, right? Hey, we're ABC News or CBS News. And I'm just throwing those out there because they're, two news organizations that have been around forever. But these networks, when we all joke about the advertisements that bombard us perpetually. Every time there's a break in the show, there's an ad for some sort of drug or disease, and here's a pharmaceutical company who's got the solution for you. Well, if those media people were also to point out that, hey, these drugs are causing problems, these drugs are killing women, the Novo Nordisk that's Ozempic. I forget the manufacturer of mifepristone, but if they call out that these drugs are causing complications, well, somebody may shut off the spigot of funding and advertising dollars that keep these quote unquote news organizations up and running. So
yeah, you know what's interesting, Doug? I was talking with someone about this the other week, and I'm going to screw up the numbers here for sure. But my point was, there are 350 million Americans. So let's say Americans 18 and up. I'm spitballing here a bit, but it's got to be around 300 million. Something like that. So 300 million adults thereabouts. And then when you look at if you ever look at the ratings of the news organizations in terms of viewership, I think Fox by far is the leading one. And it's got I think it's 2 million per week or something like that, which means the other ones are far less. I believe CNN is below 1 million. And so if you aggregate up all of let's just pick a political side, the left side, so the CNNs, the MSNBCs, and all those others that are the so-called mass media outlets, it's a relatively small percentage of the total population. So it makes me wonder, it's like people in terms of where they're getting their news that form their views. Where are you getting your news that forms your views? Makes me wonder, where are they doing that? Because it's clearly not these large organizations. I think if I'm reading this correctly, most people don't watch these things. So are they doing it on YouTube? Are they going out and getting the news on their own, targeting, kind of like I do? I have a few websites that I rely on to go see what's going on in the world. I don't watch any of those mass media channels. So I guess I'm one of those people. Are a lot of people doing that? And if so, where? What are they tapping into to
I'll
see what's
tell
going
you
on?
where I think a lot of it's coming from. Right. I'm currently reading a book right now by Peter Schweitzer it's called Red Handed, and it's about the influence of China in American politics. And we know that the CCP is actively involved in disseminating information through social media.
Yeah.
And there is a campaign, and it's not just CCP, but there are plenty of people out there who get all of their news from social media, whether it's TikTok,
Wow. Really?
and if somebody, makes a meme, or they take, a video clip of something that happened in this other part of the country, and then they say that it happened over here. I think so many people are misinformed by what's taking place, because it's easy to take a 30-second snippet of something and learn, take that in as news, and run with that as, oh, look what I learned today. This is happening over here. This is happening over there. Yeah, I think our parents are getting news from CNN and ABC and NBC and Fox as well, and OAN. But I think the majority of people, they're on their phones constantly. They're getting it from the dopamine hits that they get and enjoy from LinkedIn and TikTok and YouTube. Like, they're getting it from social media.
Another thing that fascinates me about that, I'll tell you two experiences, is I don't know if it happens to everybody, or if it's because I, on the pro-life side, I'm a bit of a public figure there, maybe a small public figure, but I'm known.
Kind of a big deal. Does
Yeah,
your apartment smell of rich mahogany, and do you have many leather-bound books?
Not yet, but I'm trying.
That's an Anchorman reference.
So I'm telling you, Doug, every week, primarily on my Facebook thing, but sometimes on my LinkedIn profile as well, I will get a friend request. It is so ridiculous. It's this incredibly beautiful, it's almost always Asian, young, I would guess between 20 and 30, and friend request. It's either a direct friend request, or it's in, like, I make a post, it'll come in the comments, and it'll be like, hey, this is really interesting. I'd like to be your friend, whatever. And you click over in the profile, and you go through these profiles. They're obviously created by some algorithm. Mm-hmm. It's always the same thing. It's like they're trying to make this person look like a real person. So there's shots of her with her pets. There's shots of nature. There's shots of food. And then, of course, every now and then, of course, the shot of her in the gym with the not too discreet look at how beautiful she is in all kinds of ways. I wonder why they do that. And it's incredible. And I start to think, why is this happening? And what I think maybe doing, it's like, if I ever accepted a friend request from one of these people, what kind of stuff is going to start showing up in my timeline, right? Mm-hmm. In terms of news, to try to influence me or whatever. So there's that. The second part is in terms of how these social media channels silo us in terms of what we believe. So if I just scroll down through my Facebook thing right now about what's on my, I think it's called the timeline, whatever it is, whatever shows up in my feed is all related to stuff that I already like. There's going to be a ton of Christian Catholic stuff. There's going to be some conservative news stuff. There is not going to be in there there's going to be some sports stuff. There's not going to be in there anything from the other side of the aisle. I call it leftist, the leftist side of the aisle. Nothing. And so I imagine, so now if I jump to someone who's on the other side of the political spectrum, same thing. All they're going to hear is just all this stuff that's happening that's leftist bias, just like all I hear is stuff that's conservative bias. And it makes you wonder, it's like, is the division and siloing intentional?
Yes.
By the social media folks to actually divide us on purpose so that we really don't speak the same language anymore. We can't communicate with each other.
I don't think that it's necessarily the platforms that do it. I believe that it's bad actors that are using the platform to disseminate a message that is intentionally dividing us. Again, I heard an interview by this Peter Schweitzer not too long ago with he was talking with another author, And he was talking about how, during COVID and, in preparation for this upcoming election, that the Chinese government has been using posts or creating posts that are intentionally divisive. Some of the posts are leaning towards one political party. Other posts leaning towards the other political party. For every post that's out there that says like, this ethnic group is bad, there's other ones that say this ethnic group is amazing, and that's trying to create a divide. But I think if you were just to go out and like, I work with a really diverse group of men. Tell you what though, if you sat down and like we sit down and we talk and we're talking, we're all different, but from different ethnic backgrounds, man, like we all get along. Like there is no division. There is no, you can have a particular feeling on what immigration should be and how we protect our borders, but it doesn't mean that you think people from Mexico are bad, right? Yeah. It doesn't mean that you think someone from Haiti is a bad guy. I've met plenty of people from Haiti, but that doesn't mean that I can't believe that two things are true at once, that not everyone is evil and maybe we should have a border. But what social media is doing is and again, it's not the platform. I think it's bad actors within using that platform that are intentionally trying to divide us, because if we are divided, we are much easier to conquer, right? Sure, I think we're probably, these are ideas that I'm echoing from some authors that I've been reading lately. And they're talking about, World War III is not going to be a kinetic war with bombs and, in an invading army. It's what's happening now. It's from the inside out.
Civil.
It's civil. It's destroying us through misinformation from, brothers hating brothers, from neighbors hating each other because they're being conditioned to think that the other side is evil and is a threat to whatever it is you believe.
Man, that completely makes sense to me, because just from a scenario planning perspective, let's say you're China, and I'm not saying this is true, but let's just say it's true. China, and you've decided that the United States is some great evil that through some means must be eliminated. And you're looking at all your options. One option you're not going to come down on is, hey, let's engage that country in some kind of major war, which could become nuclear. Because look, they've got, I don't know how many missiles we have, but we've got them everywhere, all over the place. We've got them in submarines off the China coast. It's like, yeah, that's a really dumb option. Let's not engage in that way. Let's see if we can foam up division from within, play the long game, and let them destroy themselves so we don't have to worry about it. That to me seems like such a plausible way of thinking that they're kind of heading down. Looks to me like evidence is kind of bearing that out based on some of the things you're talking about, some of the things I've experienced. And I think they're really patient and they're willing to let this play out over decades, however long it takes, rather than engage in crazy thinking like, let's engage the United States, in some kind of conventional war that could become nuclear. Don't do that. Let's just let them eat themselves from within.
Sure. I mean, what does the Bible say? A house divided cannot stand.
Yeah.
And, we went from a period of tremendous patriotism to where we're at today. Yeah. And it's a lot easier to exact vengeance on a group of people that can't even agree on a common history, who we are as a people and what we stand for and what we want to stand for. It's really interesting if you read about where some of this, think about the fentanyl crisis and what's happening at the southern borders, and where the primary ingredients for fentanyl come from. And if you start working backwards, it comes from, the communist, I always bungle what CCP stands for. But if you look
China
at the
Communist Party, Is it
Yeah,
that
thank you,
simple?
the Chinese Communist Party. If you look at um, the opium crisis that took place in like the, what was it, 1800s here in America,
Hmm.
this is what is being done with fentanyl is a direct result of revenge for what
Hmm.
America did during, and not just America, but Great Britain, et cetera, on how we used opium and how it devastated their country.
Wow. Hey, that was a cool segue. Do you mind if I jump back to our
Sure. Yeah.
abortion
Yeah.
pill discussion?
Yeah.
So, as you and I were talking about earlier before we jumped on here, this is an area where I can claim some expertise because it's in the industry that I work in full time, the pro life industry. And so I have some views about this, but they're backed up by data. And I realize as I go out and meet with people and talk with them, people in the pro life community, that they're incredibly unaware about what's going on or what has been going on and what's currently going on in the abortion industry. And so much lack of knowledge revolves around the abortion pill itself. So I'll start with one data point that tends to like blow everybody's minds, but I'll use that and as kind of the centerpiece to talk about why people need to become more informed about what's actually happening. So this year, about 70% of all abortions in our country, I'm being conservative, it's probably more than that, at least 70% of all the abortions in our country will happen by the abortion pill. The tragic story you told a few minutes ago of that young lady, we will see more and more of this going forward simply because the numbers say so. So why is this so important to understand this? Because for half a century or so, abortion was a procedure, a surgical procedure of some type, depending on how far along you are in your pregnancy, that happened on a certain date, at a certain time, done at a certain place, like a physical location down on the corner of this street and that street, done by a certain person, an abortionist. And if you take all that into consideration and you think about it, you go, well, laws that stop that can be very effective. Why? Because it's so much easier to police that, right? It's like where those things are taking place. Is it a Planned Parenthood facility? Is it a hospital? Is it some other kind of private clinic? As a matter of fact, once Roe v. Wade was overturned, and here in Texas, where you and I live, abortion became illegal, the abortion facilities, the ones that actually do abortions, basically closed. No surprise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll hear, and this is when I talk about really a lack of knowledge in the pro-life community, even to this day, I will see on pro-life news outlets claims like abortions in Texas over the last, 12 months have essentially dropped to zero. Doug, I can't tell you, it's a travesty that we make reports like that. It is 100% untrue. Is it true that their surgical procedures are not happening at facilities? Yeah. Is it true that abortions aren't taking place? Not at all. Why not? Two reasons. One, women can jump in a car and drive to New Mexico or drive up through Oklahoma into Kansas, where abortions are legal, and get abortions there. So, as a Texas citizen, it doesn't give me great solace just to say, "Oh, well, abortions aren't happening here." Well, I don't want our Texas women to be getting abortions, right? You and I are all about the dignity of women. There's nothing in my mind, that's a whole other topic, about anything as undignifying to a woman as having her preborn child killed inside of her womb. Different topic. So back to the abortion pill. So these women are traveling. It's called abortion tourism. They're going to these places, getting surgical abortions. This, however, is not the main problem by far. Back to my 70% of abortions are happening by the abortion pill. Yes, that is happening in Texas. You might say to me, oh, Brett, but abortion pills are illegal in Texas. And my retort to that would be, these women don't know that for the most part, and they don't care, because all they need to do is go on a website. There's one particular one, but more and more are popping up. It's called plancpills.org, which will direct them how to order abortion pills by mail. And they are doing so. Why do we know this? One, because even at our frontline pro-life pregnancy clinics here in Dallas, we get stories back all the time, women coming in about getting their abortion pills. And I want to share one story with you to show you what we're really up against. So this was shared with me by the executive director of one of our partners here in Dallas. A young woman comes in. She has her box of abortion pills that have arrived by mail. And why did she come in? Because she wanted to know how she was supposed to use these. Because when she opened the box, the directions for how to use the abortion pill were all in Russian. She had ordered this. They had come in from overseas. And what I want people to know, it's like you might say to me, yeah, but the FDA can outlaw mifepristone, for example, which is the first part of the abortion pill regimen. The second part of that is called misoprostol. But there's a lot of things trying to happen about the FDA somehow. The Supreme Court somehow disqualifying the FDA's approval of mifepristone for the use in abortions. My point to you is it won't matter, because the chemistry of these pills is well known around the world. Overseas suppliers most of them don't even know what the FDA is, don't care. All they know is they can make money off of this, and they know the chemistry of the pills. That's the key. They know the chemistry. And so they're willing to ship into our country, into any state, as long as they've received their money, by PayPal or whatever. They can't be caught. Even if you did try to catch them, you shut down one and another one pops up over here. It's like a giant game of whack-a-mole from here on out. If this dynamic sounds familiar to you, it's because it is a very familiar dynamic. It's called the war on drugs. And that's essentially what we're in right now in the abortion industry. And this is like this. I know this is not news that pro-lifers want to hear, because it can sound kind of hopeless. You're like, oh my gosh, we've been working half a century. We get the major law that's always been, hugely against us, which is Roe v. Wade. We get it overturned, 2.5 years ago. Wow, things are on our side. About half the states or so, abortion is illegal. Aren't we winning? And the answer is no. The abortion statistics bear this out. Abortions nationwide have hardly decreased at all. There's even some indication that they might have actually increased. Why? Again, it's women can travel and the abortion pill. This is the new reality of abortion. The reason I bring this up, Doug, is there gets so much on both sides about laws. And I can tell you from the front line perspective, people that work on this issue, the front line every day, it's almost like a non-issue. Do I support the laws that are going to be pro-life? Of course I do, because I do think there is some, not a lot. I do think there's something to be said for laws teach. But I'll also tell you, to give you some examples, with our young generation, and abortion is primarily a young person's issue, they're in large part so disconnected from the kind of things that you and I are connected to in terms of what's going on in the world. So here we are, 2.5 years on the other side of Roe v. Wade. And with the partners that I work with, the frontline clinics in Texas and Oklahoma, every week there are stories about women calling up and going, I'd like to get an abortion. And, sooner or later in the part of that conversation, the clinic person is going to say, well, abortion is illegal in Texas, or abortion is illegal in Oklahoma. And Doug, these women that call in don't know that. They really don't know. I'm not saying that's all of them, obviously. My point is that the world that you and I travel in, and the kind of news that we tap into, and the discussions that we have, sometimes are so divorced from what's really happening with the young women in this country. And I would add to that the young men. They don't know, right? And so here's a woman, she finds out that situation, and then what does she turn to? Oh, I can still do it.
Mail
word
order
travels
abortion.
fast in the young community. I go on the website, I order these, they come to my house, and I can do an abortion in the privacy of my own home, which circles us back to the original story you started with. That's exactly, maybe the dynamics were different about how she accessed the abortion pill, but those dynamics are in place. This is the war on drugs.
And Brett, I think to kind of round out this thought, I think that's why it's so important. If laws can't, that we always say, like, people say that you can't legislate morality, right? I mean, technically we do, but let's just say it isn't about passing laws. It isn't about passing laws. That's a component to it. But I think this brings it home to what you and I are trying to do, which is to educate men, because these young women who find themselves with an unplanned pregnancy, scared, nervous, don't know what to do, whether it's the father is not supportive, is pushing them to make a decision, whether it's their own family members. What you and I are trying to do is to educate young men, old men, to do as St. John Paul II calls us, but to protect the dignity of women. We need to educate men. We need to continually grow this organization so that we can educate men and show them what our true God-given role and responsibility is, so that we can go talk to other people and have that conversation and teach them about what it is that they need to be doing, so that they can help women know that abortion is not the only answer. I think in our country right now, as people are looking at what political, which candidate are you going to vote for? I think some obviously are going to support, one candidate who's very much, as you said earlier, never met an abortion she didn't like. And the other candidate may not be pro-life enough. And some people are choosing, or may choose to abstain from the election because, Trump is not pro-life enough. But at the end of the day, whoever wins this election is not a king. They are not a dictator, and they can't just snap their fingers and make things so. And ultimately, what needs to happen within this country is a change of heart. We need to look at children, the unborn, and realize that they're not a thing to be disposed of if they're inconvenient. We need to educate people to know that that is a human life in that womb growing. If you let it grow and do what it does naturally, it will turn into a human, right? It'll turn into a person, a child. I mean, it's always a human. It has a human soul. But you understand the point that I'm making. If it doesn't go from a clump of cells into a goldfish, no matter what, it's a human child that's being gestated. So what you and I are aiming to do here is just to educate people, to educate men, that we have a duty and an obligation to protect those around us, to protect the women and preserve their dignity through our actions, not just saying stuff, not just giving money to an organization, but to actually physically pick up that cross, pick up that mantle, and go do something. So thanks.
Thank you, Doug. I love that. And, a while back, about 6 months ago or so, I gave a talk in Oklahoma to a group of men. And, I went through and I defined each word within that quote, God has assigned as a duty to every man the dignity of every woman. Because I think sometimes, especially with these phrases, these quotes that are just like, they hit you and they blow your mind, but they can be kind of like platitudes, and people go like, oh yeah, and they haven't really thought through like, well, what the heck does that mean exactly? And a couple of things hit me, which I'm recalling off the top of my head, but God has assigned as a duty. A duty is an obligation. It doesn't mean like God is saying, I would really prefer if, and I think it would be a good idea if, what do you think, Brett and Doug? God has assigned as a duty an obligation. He is saying, there's no like way out of this. You must do this. And dignity is incredible, because if you go look up the definition of dignity, and philosophers talk about this all the time, but one of the definitions that really struck me was nobility, right? Nobility as part of that. So you think about woman as noble, right? The nobility of women, grown women for sure, but to kind of lean into your argument a second ago, the preborn are part of that, right? Certainly half of them are female, but it's like you got to be thinking about the nobility of females, the nobility of women, like from conception. And so, is there anything, Doug, when we think through that, is there anything that's like more, what I don't know what the right word is, the opposite of noble, undignified? There's probably better words, but is there anything that lowers the dignity of someone other than saying, this is your best option, to take the life of another human being so that you can, fill in the blank. Every person's story is different. But I'm like, that is the most disempowering statement I think I've ever heard. You have to take the life of another human being in order that you can achieve X. And it's like, when we apply that to any other area of life, we call that insane. And so why in this particular case do we call it like not only not insane, but some would argue it's a societal good? It makes no sense whatsoever to me. And so when you think about, it's really interesting though, and I realize now our culture has been so conditioned by this issue, and there are people who are striving to do good, and they're basically in the main, they're virtuous people of high character, but because they haven't really dove into this issue in depth and really kind of studied it and understand, and believe me, if you do that deeply with an open heart, you're going to come out on the side of being pro-life, not just personally, but across the board. But the vast majority of people have not taken the time to do that. So if I'm talking about this people, and there's a very large number of people who are like this, who are personally pro-life, but wouldn't want to tell anyone else what to do. And even if I stepped into that and agreed with it, and I don't, but if I did for a second, the one thing I could say to you though is, okay, let's not talk about what you think about the laws on this and what I think on the laws about this. Couldn't we at least agree on this? That to dignify women, don't you believe that they should be given accurate information about all the options available to them with their pregnancy? Can't we at least agree on that? And I don't believe there's any reasonable person who would answer no to that, except the super crazy hard left people who really want to kill humans because it hurts, Mother Planet or something like that. The true eugenicists. But the vast majority of people, no matter what they believe about this law on pro-life, I believe would embrace that concept. Yes, of course, all women should be fully informed about all the options available to them. The reason I bring that up, Doug, is what is happening in the abortion industrial complex, who is well aware that there is great support for women who will carry their pregnancy to term in terms of emotional support, medical support, material support. that information is being withheld from them intentionally. No one goes into Planned Parenthood, and believe me, as part of the interview process, if Planned Parenthood took the time to ask, 6 out of 10 women who sit in front of them would say, I would really prefer to carry this pregnancy to term. However, I don't think I can because, reasons X, Y, Z. Those reasons are usually going to be around nobody supporting me, or I don't have money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Planned Parenthood doesn't say, well, thank you for saying the reason. And if you want to carry your pregnancy to term, we can connect you to resources of the people that can provide those things that you need to do that. Nobody at Planned Parenthood says that, even though they know that information. They know it exists. And so in my mind, it's like, could anything be more undignifying to a woman
than to be lied to like
who
that?
Wants to, in her heart, do this thing, carry this pregnancy to term? You have the information that can connect her to the resources that she needs in order to do that, and you intentionally withhold it. For what? For money, for profit, for dollars. How can anyone look at an organization like that and say that this women is about care for women and dignifying women? How can that happen? And it's easy to prove that they withhold this, right? They have no interest whatsoever in informing and educating these women so that they can make the best choice for themselves. Couldn't you agree, Doug, even if you were on the other side of this issue in terms of law, which I know you aren't, but if you were, couldn't you at least agree that that is a terrible thing? That Planned Parenthood and any other abortion facility should offer all the information available and let the woman make the choice based on that.
For a group that calls themselves pro-choice, it's ironic that they remove one of the options of choice from how they present the topic.
Well, it's a common theme on the left. We're all about your freedom, except for as long as you're doing what we want you to do.
Yeah.
And then it's all about freedom, but it's freedom within the context of how we define freedom, not how you define freedom. And so this is the thing. It's like, that's why, not surprisingly, that entire industry is politically very hard on the left, because they're really more about information control in order to get the result that they want. And, people be damned in the process. And that's exactly what happens. Is, of course, 1 million children a year lose their lives just in this country. And of course, the women, and especially I like to talk about the 6 out of 10. We know that from research. We know it from our frontline experience of women who did not want to do that. Those women, imagine that. If you really in your heart didn't want to do that, you end up going through with it because you felt like you had no choice. Do you think, like, psychologically, spiritually, at the deepest level for that woman, that she's going to be carrying that scar, that wound with her the rest of her life? Of course she is, right? So multiply that like 600,000 women a year, year after year after year after year. Who knows what that number is, and how that not only impacts them, but of course, wounded people wound people, and how that wounds others in their circle. So from your point about culture, I couldn't agree more. It's about, in our specific case, what we do here, dignifying women so that they don't have to make those choices that are contrary to who they are as women. They become empowered women. They're not wounded women. They're healthy women. And healthy women make other healthy people around them. So that's how you end up changing the culture. And we have so much work to do. I feel like we're so far behind on this, men for sure, but other women and just our culture in general. I feel like we've really kind of ceded that ground, that cultural ground, to the other side for whatever reason for decades, while we're so focused on what we thought laws that could cut off the supply of abortion. And we forgot to focus on, well, what if that doesn't work? And now it doesn't work. And we just forgot to spend so much more time focusing on the heart.
Yeah, we were outflanked. We were outflanked in this battle.
Yeah.
Look, I think, I'm gonna dock this yacht. I think what you're talking about, what I'm trying to get at here is that we have something we need to do, and part of it is action. We have to actually physically take action. I think that leads us well into what we've got coming up on October 22nd, which is we, as the Sheepdog Brotherhood, are going to be opening the doors for membership. So be on the lookout for us launching this, so that we can not only help to educate through our podcast, through our discussions, through our talk, through our frankly, our earnest discussions about where we're at about, in abortion, where we're at with society, but what we as men need to do in this country and abroad, but what we need to do to help dignify women so that we can take steps to actually change the heart in this country.
Amen.
So be on the lookout. We're going to be having some launch announcements for the webpage, for all that coming up October 22nd. Be on the lookout.
Sweet.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Brett.
Thank you, Doug.
Have a great day.
You too, brother.
Bye-bye.